I would like to welcome everyone to the live stream and those who will watch this in the future. Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be in time and space. Nonetheless, I want to deliver this quick lesson about memory because memory will become much more of a primitive and prevalent feature to have and to add on to your arsenal. What's up, Dizzy? And again, if you see anything in my nose, that's purposely done to alter my breathing. So don't let that distract you once again. So let's get straight into it. So once again, memory. Going into the 2020. What's up, Callie? Callie in the building. Going into 2020, we know that memory, spiritual currency, for the people that are not really familiar. What's up, Selena? Let me break a couple things down so that we can build a bridge so that we can understand where we're going in the future for the progressive minds and the visionaries out there. So, if we were to take, what's up, young Samsura? If we were to take the word memory, there's two parts of the word. You got mem, then you got ori, right? Mem is a Hebrew letter. Mem, it represents the notion of stability, right? Mem is a feminine principle or the water element. So if we were to take it to the tarot, for those who understand the lingo, that would be the hanged man. For those who need a visual presentation of what that looks like, I have it right here. Voila. Don't worry about the color. The hanged man represents isolation and knowledge. So that's the first thing. What's up, Brianna? Isolation and knowledge. So when it comes to cultivating your memory, building your astral temple, anything that has to do with spiritual or yin energy, because we're talking about the feminine principle, the water element, we're talking about yin energy. You got the yang or the young energy, then you got the yin, which is the feminine. The yang is a masculine. Right now we're talking about the feminine because it's the feminine principle that builds up the memory or the mem. So you got mem, which is essentially water, then you got the ori, which is in motion. So it's water in motion. We know that the body is mostly water, and including the blood, right? Because the blood can be technically described as water. Because we're mostly blood. Where does the blood come from? We don't have to get into all that. Nonetheless, memory. It's a feminine principle, a feminine trait. You need yin energy. To build up the yin energy, anything of a spiritual nature requires yin energy. So that's meditation, getting into a trance state, astral traveling, dreaming. All that deals within the realm of the feminine principle. Anything masculine, the yang, anything earthly, anything you need the mentality, you need to get it done, you need to conquer, you need to go out and challenge the world. Pretty much when you're out and about in the world, that's mostly yang energy or the masculine energy so that you can fulfill your destiny or achieve your goals in life. You need masculine energy to alter matter. The feminine energy is to do things beyond matter. So when you want to come into contact with things and beings beyond matter, then that requires feminine energy, or in this case, memory. We understand that you cannot visualize something that you have not seen before without getting into a trance state. What do I mean by that? If I ask you to visualize something that you've never seen, you wouldn't be able to do it. The only way you will be able to see or visualize something that you have never physically seen, you will have to put yourself into a trance state and be able to move your mind in other ways. But under normal circumstances, we are only allowed to visualize or to envision things that we have seen before unless you are creating something completely original. In the case where you are creating something completely original, then we will have to break down what memory breaks down to when we go to the numerology. What do I mean by that? You have the Pythagorean numerology, the Chaldean numerology. We don't have to get into the dynamics. Essentially, if you were to break down the letters into a single number, memory, M, 13th letter, E is the 5th letter, M, 13th letter, O is the 15th, R is the 18, Y is the 25, right? right? You break all that down, you add it all up, break it all down, you're going to get the number 8, Pythagorean wise, right? So it's going to give you the number 8. The number 8 resonates with the frequency of Saturn, which is dealing with constrictions and restraints. Saturn teaches you discipline. Saturn teaches you how to survive in the long term success, to be able to leave a legacy, to leave things here in this world after you have physically moved on, right? So Saturn is teaching you those arts, which again is the harsh reality. Saturn doesn't really filter that energy. Saturn just makes that prevalent. So memory essentially is connected to visionaries. Why? Because if we look at the Capricorns, Capricorns are pulling their energy from Saturn. So the master designer, or the master number 22, the master builder or the master designer, being in the frequency of Capricorn, or the energy of Capricorn, however you want to display it. We understand that we have to shape and mold from original thought, or we're going to be pulling from things that we have already seen before and reassembling them in a new fashion, which is just as fine. Nothing wrong with that as well. That's what we do when we visualize. Like if you try to envision your day going perfectly, how that would look. How does a perfect day look mentally? Just to have that mental concept in your mind is enough to get things moving. But getting back to the number 8 and the vibration of Saturn. So if you were to break down memory, you would get the frequency of 8. The frequency of 8 is the energy of Saturn, which teaches you constrictions and restraints, discipline, so on and so forth. So memory essentially requires you to be disciplined, because you literally have to sit still and just move your mind. So it's like memorizing something. So imagine trying to memorize, let's just say, the Hebrew alphabet, an alphabet that you're not familiar with no pen and no pad. So you have to rely strictly on memory. So you have to burn these images into your mind, going, repetition over and over and over and over again. Eventually, it'll be locked into the mind. However, it's temporary. If you want to permanently lock it into the mind, you have to keep refining it. That's when we get into the Chaldean numerology, which is slightly different. Again, if you are not familiar, feel free to look up these terms on your own time. Continuing on, if we take it to the Chaldean numerology, it gives us the frequency of the 5, which is a Mercury. The difference between the Pythagorean and the the Pythagorean shows you the obvious nature of a thing, or the outer appearance of a thing, or the objective nature of a thing. The Chaldean shows you the subjective, or the internal nature of a thing. It's not what you see, it's what you don't see. The Chaldean numerology shows you what you don't see. The Pythagorean numerology shows you what you do see. So you have 2 dimensions, 2 different systems of numerology that you have available to you to break down things in even more simplistic forms if you so choose. So going to the Chaldean form of numerology, we would get the frequency of the 5, which would be the energy of Mercury. So how does this change the dynamics of everything we just spoke about? If you broke down memory, it will connect you to Saturn. We know Saturn is the visionaries. Saturn produces the visionaries. Why? Because Saturn teaches you the arts of the individual gears. So imagine a complex machine with individual gears. Saturn teaches you the individual gears. Jupiter more so teaches you like the overall scope. Saturn is showing you the individual gears, every single element you need to know and have memorized in order to be successful at any given thing. People who are successful at anything know what they're doing, and they most likely have committed their arts and their trades to heart. They don't really have to look into the books anymore because they have committed it to memory. So success is linked to memory, being able to commit some type of system that you're already familiar with. Whatever you already have a passion or a love for, you are memorizing these arts so that you can pull them out and utilize them at your leisure. An example of this would be, for those who are interested in these arts, the occult arts, the tarot, numerology, astrology, Kabbalah, so on and so forth. Being able to have all those things committed to your memory and being able to pull out these dimensions at your will allows you to access powers of a supernatural essence That's just not available to other people. Why? Because unless you have it in your heart, aka faith, unless you have faith that these things actually exist, and the only way to know that they actually exist is to take them through trial and error, to actually see them playing out in real time. Any tips on committing to memory more efficiently? Now, whenever we're dealing with efficiency and we're dealing with logic, we know that we're dealing with Virgo, right? So whenever you need like technical details memorized, now you're dealing with the energy of Virgo. The reason why I'm using the zodiac is because we have all 12 or 13, depending on which system you use. We have all of the zodiac within us. So whenever we need to channel a particular area of life, is connected to a particular constellation. So for example, Virgo would be the sixth house in the astrology terms. The sixth house is all about the house of self-improvement, service, work, basically how you work, your service to the world, your duty, service, work, duty, self-improvement. All that is the sixth house or the energy of Virgo. Why? Because Virgos are very detail orientated. Why? Because the Virgo is a mutable earth sign, which is the modality of the Virgo. So you got elements, you got modalities. I appreciate the super chat, excuse me, Lux. So you already know. But continuing on, because I'm giving you as much jewels as I can. I don't want to take up too much time, right? Just giving you, this is what you need to know. Because once we move into the 2020 frequency, then things are going to be a lot more elusive. Why? Because we're dealing with the two frequency or the energy of the moon. So you got a double lunar energy for those who don't understand what I mean. So you have two twos, 2020. You have a double lunar energy. You put the two twos together, you get a four, which is the energy of Rahu, which is essentially the demon of the numerology, the darkest of the numbers. The number four is the darkest of all the numbers because it's the most dense, or it's the heaviest, it's the most dense, however you want to put it. So because the four is the most challenging number, let's just say if you lived in a house vibration four, it would be very challenging, yet it also teaches you money management. It teaches you the essential skills of the Virgo. So this is going to another level of house numerology because you can also alter your house numerology as well. So nonetheless, just give y'all little bits of information there. I'll be right back at y'all, most likely tomorrow.